Homelessness is on the rise across America. According to the Department of Housing and Urban Development, more than 580,000 people experienced homelessness.
At minus 20 degrees, turning on your heater could actually be the thing that kills you faster than the cold itself. Sounds impossible, right? But thousands of homeless RV dwellers have discovered something that survival experts rarely discuss. A collection of methods so simple they sound like myths. But there's one critical mistake that transforms these life-saving tricks into deadly traps. And before this is over, you'll understand why waking up alive in a frozen RV requires knowing things most people never learn. The tin can problem nobody talks about. Here's what they don't tell you when you see those shiny RVs rolling down the highway. You're looking at glorified tin cans with wheels. Fancy tin cans, sure, but tin cans nonetheless. Think about your house for a second. Those walls, they're packed with 6 inches of insulation, sometimes more. Now look at an RV. You're lucky to get 2 inches, sometimes just 1. That's thinner than a decent sandwich, about as effective at stopping Arctic cold as a screen door on a submarine. So how do people actually survive when temperatures plummet and there's no heating system to save them? The answer isn't what you'd expect. And the first line of defense has nothing to do with heat at all. First defense, becoming a gap detective. Cold air is like water. It finds every crack, every gap, every microscopic opening. And in an RV, those openings are everywhere. The experienced dwellers, they treat their RVs like leaky boats, because honestly, that's exactly what they are. Foam pool noodles get jammed into window frames. Pipe insulation gets stuffed around slide-out seams. Every single opening becomes a battlefield. Why? Because every tiny gap transforms into a wind tunnel pointed straight at your sleeping bag. Have you ever felt a draft in your house and wondered where it's coming from? Now multiply that by 10. That's an RV in winter. Then comes the plastic wrap trick. You grab that shrink film from any hardware store, tape it over your windows, hit it with a hairdryer, boom. You've just created a dead air pocket between you and the freezing glass outside. This cuts heat loss by about 30%. Not bad for $5 worth of plastic. But wait, what about the bottom of doors? That's where draft snakes come in. Old jeans stuffed with rice. Sounds ridiculous. Works beautifully. Your grandmother probably used these in her farmhouse decades ago. Some solutions never go out of style. The enemy below your feet. Now here's what most people miss entirely. The floor. That's your biggest enemy. And most people don't realize it until it's too late. See, houses sit on foundations, solid ground. RVs, they sit on tires with nothing but frozen air underneath. Cold doesn't just seep up through that floor. It launches up like it's got somewhere important to be. Think about standing on a frozen lake. Doesn't matter how many blankets you pile on top if the cold keeps attacking from below. Smart RV dwellers figured something out, though. They hang heavy blankets as room dividers. Why heat an entire vehicle when you only sleep in one corner? Shrink your heating zone down to just the bed area. Suddenly, you're not fighting to warm 400 square feet. You're protecting 80. Makes sense, right? But sealing gaps only does so much when your windows are basically ice magnets. There's a trick involving bubble wrap that costs almost nothing and actually outperforms some expensive solutions. The bubble wrap secret bubble wrap. Yes, the stuff you pop when you're bored. Turns out it's one of the best insulators money can buy, and it costs almost nothing. Here's how it works. You take a spray bottle, mist the window with water, press bubble wrap directly onto the glass with the bubbles facing inward. The water creates a seal. No tape needed. That's it. That's the whole trick. And it cuts window heat loss by up to 50%. For something you probably have in a box from your last Amazon order. The best part? Light still comes through. Unlike cardboard, which turns your RV into a cave, bubble wrap keeps things bright. Nobody wants to live in a shoebox with no sunlight. Depression hits hard enough in winter without sitting in darkness. Now the veterans take this further. They use reflectix, that shiny silver bubble material you've seen at hardware stores. Looks like something NASA would use. Costs about $1 per square foot. They cut it to fit every single window. And instead of just blocking cold, it bounces your own body heat right back at you, like a mirror, but for warmth. Some folks line their entire ceiling with the stuff. Makes sense, right? Heat rises, your thin RV roof is basically a launch pad for all that precious warmth you're generating. Reflectix stops it from leaving. But here's where it gets clever. The reflectix cocoon strategy. The real pros build what they call reflectix cocoons around just their bed. Forget heating the whole RV. That's a losing battle. Instead, they create a tiny heat-reflecting fort, walls of silver surrounding their sleeping area. Everything they generate stays trapped inside that small space. It's like sleeping inside a baked potato wrapper. Weird comparison, I know, but accurate. Does it work? One person described feeling like a leftover being reheated, but he also said it worked better than his actual heater. Windows and ceilings matter, but there's something stealing even more heat, and it's hiding right beneath your feet. The wind tunnel underneath. Here's the thing most people never consider. An RV sits on tires, not a foundation, not solid ground. There's literally a wind tunnel underneath the entire vehicle, and that wind tunnel is stealing heat every single second. Cold air rushes beneath the floor, pulls warmth down through the thin metal undercarriage, disappears into the night. It's like trying to stay warm while standing on a frozen lake. Doesn't matter how many blankets you pile on top if the cold keeps attacking from below. Experienced RV dwellers figured this out fast. Their solution? Skirting. Basically, you hang barriers around the entire base of the RV to block that freezing wind. Tarps work. Plywood works better. Foam insulation boards work best. The goal is simple. Create a dead air pocket underneath instead of a wind highway. The results are shocking. Proper skirting can raise floor temperature by 10 to 15 degrees. That's the difference between your feet going numb and actually sleeping through the night. But here's where it gets creative. Some folks use straw bales. Stack them around the base and you've got insulation that costs almost nothing. In rural areas, farmers practically give the stuff away after harvest season. Others grab discarded political campaign signs, those rigid plastic yard signs politicians leave everywhere after elections. Free, waterproof, and surprisingly sturdy. Finally, a good use for campaign promises, right? The deadly skirting mistake. Now here's the mistake beginners make. Sealing the skirt completely tight. Seems logical, right? Block every gap. Keep all the cold out. Bad idea. Moisture builds up underneath. Water vapor from temperature differences, condensation from the ground, humidity from who knows where. That moisture freezes, pipes crack, mold grows, so you leave a small gap. Just enough airflow to prevent problems without creating a wind tunnel. It's a balancing act. Too open, you freeze. Too sealed, you rot. Speaking of moisture problems, the heating methods we'll cover next create a whole different water nightmare inside the RV. And trust me, waking up to ice on your walls hits different. The medieval solution that actually works. Now here's where things get a little medieval, and I mean that literally. The terracotta pot heater sounds like something a survivalist made up on YouTube. But this method actually dates back centuries. European peasants used clay pot heating during brutal winters long before anyone dreamed of central heating. The setup is dead simple. You take a clay flower pot, flip it upside down, place it over a few tea light candles. That's it. The clay absorbs the heat from the flames, then radiates it slowly outward like a tiny fireplace. 4 tea lights under a 6-inch pot can bump up a small enclosed space by 10 to 15 degrees. Not bad for something that costs about $2. But here's what makes it actually useful. The pot acts as thermal mass. Even after the candles burn out, that clay keeps releasing warmth for another hour or so. Does it heat your whole house? Absolutely not. But warming your hands over it? That's a different story. RV dwellers figured this out fast. They don't try to heat the whole vehicle with one little pot. Instead, they use it to warm a small sleeping nook or keep their fingers from going numb while reading. Smart, targeted heat. The serious part, nobody mentions now the serious part. This method comes with real risks. Those candles produce carbon monoxide. Small amount, sure, but in a sealed RV, that adds up quick. You need ventilation, period, a cracked window, a roof vent, something. And that fireproof surface underneath? Not optional. Clay pots can crack from heat stress. Candles can tip. People have gotten careless. The photos aren't pretty. Some folks get creative and stack 2 pots together, creating an air gap between them for even better heat distribution. Works surprisingly well. Like a poor man's radiator, the terracotta heater won't save your life on a 20 below night. But combined with everything else, it's another tool in the toolbox. Speaking of tools, there's one heat source that costs nothing and runs all night without fuel. You're already carrying it with you. The grandmother technique. Here's the thing nobody tells you about surviving. Freezing nights. The fanciest sleeping bag in the world won't save you if you climb into it cold. Your body spends the first hour just trying to warm up that icy fabric cocoon. Wasted energy. Wasted time. Enter the hot water bottle. Yeah, the same thing your grandmother used in 1952. Turns out Grandma knew exactly what she was doing. Fill a sturdy bottle with hot water, tuck it at the foot of your sleeping bag 30 minutes before bed. You're climbing into preheated paradise. That warmth lasts 6 to 8 hours. No electricity, no propane, no risk of dying in your sleep from carbon monoxide. But here's where most people mess up. They grab whatever plastic bottle is lying around. Bad idea. Regular soda bottles warp under hot water. They crack. They leak. Suddenly you're sleeping in a puddle at 2 in the morning when it's 15 degrees outside. Nalgene bottles are the gold standard. Thick plastic, won't crack, won't melt. Worth every penny. Now some RV dwellers take this old school approach even further. They heat large flat stones on a camp stove, wrap them in towels, slide them into their bedding. Sounds medieval, right? That's because it basically is. People have been doing this for centuries before anyone invented central heating. And then there's the heated rice sock. Take a tube sock, fill it with dry rice, microwave it for 2 minutes. This thing molds perfectly to your body and holds heat for hours. Tuck one against your lower back or between your knees. Game changer on brutal nights. Your body is the furnace. The whole point here is simple. You're turning your body into the furnace. And these tools just help trap what you're already producing. Makes sense, right? Your body generates roughly 100 watts of heat while sleeping. That's basically a light bulb running all night. The trick isn't creating more heat, it's keeping what you've already got from escaping. Speaking of body heat, there's a reason some RV dwellers don't sleep alone on the coldest nights, and it has nothing to do with romance. The human puzzle piece strategy. Here's the thing nobody talks about. Your body is basically a space heater with legs. Every single night, you're pumping out roughly 100 watts of heat. That's the same as a light bulb burning for 8 hours straight. And in a freezing RV, that warmth is pure gold. So what do experienced RV dwellers do? They stop fighting alone. Couples press together like human puzzle pieces. Pet owners suddenly become very popular. A dog generates about the same heat as a small space heater. And they don't complain about cold feet. Well, actually they do, by putting their cold feet on you. But here's where it gets interesting. Some RV communities have figured out a rotation system. On the worst nights, we're talking single digits, 3 people will pile into one vehicle. Sounds cramped, right? It is, but cramped and warm beats spacious and hypothermic every time. The right gear makes the difference. Now, trapping that body heat requires the right gear. Sleeping bags rated for 0 degrees or below aren't a luxury here. They're survival equipment. These bags are engineered to capture every bit of warmth you generate and bounce it right back at you, like a hug that actually does something useful. And wearing a hat to bed? Not optional. Your head releases about 10% of your total body heat. Most people learn this the hard way during a camping trip where they wake up feeling like their brain turned into a snow cone. Then there's the pre-bed snack trick. Eating something high-fat before you crawl into your sleeping bag, peanut butter works perfectly, gives your body fuel to burn through the night. Your metabolism kicks up, generating more internal heat while you sleep. It's like stoking a furnace, except the furnace is you. Makes sense, right? Your body wants to keep you alive. Give it the right tools and it'll work overtime. But body. Heat alone has limits. When temperatures really plummet, most RV dwellers turn to something more powerful, something that brings real warmth, but also real danger. The device. Everyone uses propane heaters are everywhere in winter RV communities. And I mean everywhere, specifically those little Mr. Buddy units you see at camping stores. Why? Because they actually work. One small propane heater can turn a freezing metal box into something almost comfortable. Almost. We're talking the difference between seeing your breath and actually feeling your fingers. But there's a catch. Actually, several catches. These heaters have oxygen depletion sensors built in. Fancy name for a safety feature that shuts the unit off if oxygen levels drop too low. Sounds reassuring, right? Well, it is, mostly. The technology has saved countless lives. But here's what the box doesn't tell you in big letters: the moisture problem. Burning propane indoors creates moisture. Lots of it. A single heater running through the night can add a full cup of water vapor into that tiny space every single hour. That moisture has to go somewhere. And in freezing temperatures, it goes onto your windows, your walls, your ceiling. By morning, you're not in an RV anymore. You're in an igloo. Ice crystals everywhere. People have taken photos that look like someone installed frosted glass overnight. So what's the solution? Crack a window. Yes, seriously. You're running a heater to stay warm, and the advice is to let cold air in. Makes about as much sense as using an umbrella with holes, but that ventilation keeps condensation manageable, and more importantly, it prevents dangerous gas buildup. Then there's the cost. A 1-pound propane canister runs about 3 to 5 hours on the lowest setting. At $4 to $5 per canister, you're spending roughly $35 a week just to not freeze. That adds up fast when you're already scraping by. Some folks connect larger propane tanks to reduce costs. Others ration their heat, running it only until midnight, then burrowing into blankets. The math is brutal. Warmth versus groceries, comfort versus fuel for tomorrow. But even with perfect ventilation and careful use, propane brings an invisible danger that kills people every winter. And that danger doesn't knock first. The silent killer. Now here's where things get deadly serious. And I mean that literally. Carbon monoxide doesn't smell like anything. It doesn't taste like anything. You can't see it. That's why they call it the silent killer. And it's claimed lives in RVs every single winter without fail. The terrifying part? It makes you sleepy before it kills you. So you're cold, you're tired, you drift off thinking you're just exhausted. You never wake up. It's like nature designed the perfect assassin, and it works for free. Every year, RV dwellers die from running heaters, generators, or even idling cars for warmth. Some people run their vehicle's engine thinking they'll warm up quick. Bad idea. Exhaust seeps in through gaps you didn't know existed. Here's what gets me. A battery-powered carbon monoxide detector costs under $20. That's less than 2 tanks of propane, less than dinner at a cheap restaurant, yet people skip it because they think they'll be careful. Careful doesn't cut it with CO. The cruel symptoms. The symptoms are cruel too. Headache, dizziness, confusion, feeling weak. Know what else causes those symptoms? Being cold and exhausted in a freezing RV. So victims often think they just need more rest. They close their eyes. Game over. One experienced RV dweller told me something that stuck. He called it the dead man's rule. Simple. Never sleep with any combustion device running unless you've got working detectors and cracked ventilation. Period. No exceptions. Not even when it's minus 20 outside. Organizations that help homeless RV communities, their top priority item isn't blankets or food. It's free CO detectors. That tells you everything about how serious this is. And the weird part? Most detectors will last years on a single battery. You install it once, forget it's there, and it screams bloody murder if things go wrong. It's the cheapest insurance policy in existence. The other silent enemy. But surviving the night isn't just about avoiding poison gas. There's another silent enemy that sneaks up on RV dwellers, and it starts forming on your walls before you even notice. Condensation. Remember that moisture from the propane heater? It's not just making ice crystals on your windows, it's breeding mold in your walls, creating rust on metal surfaces, rotting away the wood frame of your mobile home. And in extreme cold, that condensation freezes solid. You wake up to ice forming on the inside of your RV. Your own breath creates frost on the ceiling above your bed. It's like sleeping in a meat locker, except you're the meat. The solution requires constant vigilance, wiping down windows every morning, running a small fan to circulate air, opening vents even when every instinct screams to keep the warm air trapped inside. It's exhausting. It's counterintuitive, but it's necessary. What the professionals know. Professional RV dwellers, the ones who've survived multiple winters, they've developed a system, a routine that becomes second nature. Before sunset, they do their rounds, check every seal, test every heat source, position their water bottles, prepare their sleeping cocoon. They eat a high-calorie dinner, something with fats and proteins that'll burn slow through the night. They dress in layers, thermal underwear, wool socks, a hat, Never cotton. Cotton holds moisture. Moisture steals heat. They position their sleeping bag away from walls. Cold radiates through those thin RV walls like they're not even there. They keep a headlamp within reach, fumbling for a light. Switch in the dark while your hands are numb is a recipe for disaster. They keep emergency supplies in the bed with them, water that won't freeze, high-calorie snacks, that carbon monoxide detector we talked about, and they never ever assume they'll wake up if something goes wrong. The morning ritual. Surviving the night is only half the battle. Morning brings its own challenges. Everything is cold, not just cold, Arctic cold. Touch metal and your skin sticks cold. Getting out of that sleeping bag requires mental preparation. It's like jumping into an ice bath, except you're jumping into air instead of water. The first task? Check your water. If you left bottles outside your sleeping area, they're frozen solid. Burst pipes are common. Cracked containers everywhere. Smart dwellers keep a small bottle inside their sleeping bag. Body heat keeps it liquid through the night. Then comes the condensation cleanup. Ice on the windows, frost on the ceiling, moisture everywhere. Skip this step and you're inviting mold, rust, structural damage that'll make your already difficult living situation even worse. The psychological toll. Here's what the survival guides don't tell you. The physical challenges are tough, but the psychological toll, that's what breaks people. Waking up every morning in a frozen metal box, knowing you'll do it again tonight, and tomorrow night, and the night after that. The constant stress of wondering if you'll wake up. The exhaustion from poor sleep and uncomfortable cold. The isolation from being unable to explain your situation to people with warm houses. Depression creeps in. Anxiety becomes your constant companion. Some dwellers talk about the 3 a.m. moment, that time in the deepest part of night when you wake up cold and wonder how your life got here. But here's the thing about humans. We're adaptable. We're survivors. The same people who hit those psychological lows also develop incredible resilience. They find community with others in similar situations. They share tips, resources, hope. They learn that surviving isn't just about the right gear or the clever tricks. It's about mindset, about waking up each day and choosing to keep going. The hidden benefits. This might sound strange, but some RV dwellers talk about unexpected benefits from their situation. They've learned what they actually need versus what society told them they needed. Turns out it's not much. They've discovered a form of freedom. No mortgage, no property taxes, no being tied to one location. They've developed problem-solving skills most people never acquire. MacGyver-level creativity becomes standard operating procedure. They found that community matters more than comfort, that sharing body heat with strangers on the coldest night creates bonds stronger than most friendships. They've learned their bodies are more capable than they ever imagined. That survival instinct still exists, hot beneath the modern veneer. None of this makes the cold easier. None of this solves the fundamental problem of housing insecurity, but it does mean survival is possible. Not comfortable, not ideal, but possible. The bottom line. So, here's what it takes to sleep in a freezing RV without heating and wake up alive. Seal every gap like your life depends on it. Because it does. Use cheap materials creatively. Bubble wrap, reflectix, political signs. Protect yourself from below. Skirting isn't optional. Understand that your body is the heat source. Everything else just traps what you generate. Never trust combustion devices without proper ventilation and working detectors. Accept that comfort and survival are different things. You're aiming for survival. Build community, share resources, watch out for each other. The one thing most people get wrong. Remember at the beginning when I said heating could kill you faster than cold? Here's what I meant. People panic in the cold. They grab the biggest heater they can find, they crank it up high, they seal every crack to keep warm air in. Then they fall asleep and never wake up. The carbon monoxide builds up slowly. The oxygen depletes gradually. The symptoms mirror simple exhaustion. By the time you realize something's wrong, you're too confused to save yourself. The paradox of survival in a frozen RV is this. The thing that makes you warm can be the thing that kills you. You have to stay cold enough to stay safe, warm enough to survive, but cold enough to maintain ventilation. It's a razor's edge. and thousands of people walk it every single winter night. What this all means, these aren't just clever camping tips. This is survival information that people are using right now. Tonight, in your city, in every city. While you're reading this, someone is stuffing rice into a sock. Someone else is taping bubble wrap to a window. Another person is making the agonizing choice between warmth and safety. The techniques sound simple. They are simple. That's the point. Survival doesn't require expensive gear. It requires knowledge, creativity, willingness to do things that seem ridiculous until they save your life. So the next time you see an RV parked in a Walmart lot in winter, understand what's happening inside. Someone is employing every single trick in this script, fighting a battle against cold that most people never even think about. And when they wake up in the morning, ice on the walls, fingers numb, breath visible in the air, they've won another round. That's what survival looks like. Not heroic, not comfortable, just waking up alive to fight another day. And now you know exactly how they do it.